Thank you so much for joining me, Dr. Richard.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you. Now, let's take a look at the theme, strengthening actions for nature to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Can you give us an insight on this theme?
Yeah, thanks again. Actually, the entire globe, as we speak today, is under the weight of environmental challenges. These challenges range from plastic pollution that we see everywhere across the entire globe on the African continent, climate change, biodiversity loss, and nature degradation. All these aspects are actually challenges that the world is facing today. If you were to focus just on plastics as we speak, 11 million tons of plastic actually each and every year get into the oceans. And as a result of this, if you were to put that, it's actually literally a truck of plastic waste being emptied into our oceans every minute. And these aspects are actually what the UN Environment Assembly have been discussing and coming up with solutions that can actually be able to address this menace that is actually plaguing the world.
All right. Dr. Richard, now Africa is faced with serious environmental challenges, including water management, land degradation, deforestation, biodiversity loss, and extreme vulnerability to climate change. How will this session address these problems?
Very important question. As we're speaking today, the entire African continent, each and every year, actually produces 120 million solid waste. And this solid waste, out of it, 13% is plastic. So we're talking about over 16 million tons of plastic waste that is produced by the African continent. At the moment, African countries are vulnerable to the changing climate, and most of the countries have put together what is called the nationally determined contributions. They've actually increased the ambition to reduce emissions. If you take Nigeria, for example, in 2021, December, the country actually enacted the Climate Change Act. And this act actually provides an opportunity to be able to see environmental challenges as an opportunity. And in the NDCs of Nigeria, for example, and across many countries in the continent, they actually aim to reduce emissions by up to 47%. So what these discussions here and the agreement, especially the resolutions that are actually being discussed, marine litter, nature-based solutions, green recovery to plastic pollution, will then help provide an opportunity for most of these action plans that countries have put together to then be operationalized, and do so within a global framework that then unleash opportunities. Let me just put in perspective here. Nigeria actually every year produces 500,000 tons of plastics, out of which 200,000 get into the ocean. If you take Lagos, for example, every day, 2,000 tons of plastics are produced, and only about 14% of these are recycled. What does it mean? It means it provides an opportunity. And so the resolution here provides an opportunity because it's looking at how can plastic be produced, how can they be recycled, how can they be repackaged, and here the job opportunities, especially for our young people, lies.
Very interesting one indeed. Now, that being said, Dr. Richard, can you tell us what the implications of this summit will be for Africa, seeing how many African leaders will also be in attendance?
The implication is about jobs, jobs, jobs. Environmental challenges are actually economic opportunities. They are investment opportunities for countries. And the resolutions and the discussions that are happening here, because as I started off by saying, the world is facing a triple planetary crisis: climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution, and waste. These challenges are disguised opportunities. And if you look at the continent of Africa today, every year 12 million young people are getting into the labor market and competing with only 3 million jobs. And by 2035, 430 million African citizens will be getting into the labor market, and there are no jobs. So the discussions showcasing that when actions are taken, for example, the aspect of plastic pollution, with only about 10% of plastics across the entire world being recycled, that means that 90%. And in the entire African continent, only 4% of plastics are being recycled. But this is where the jobs lie. And when we look across the entire continent, we are seeing young people who are recycling plastics into plastic tires that are replacing concrete bricks and blocks. And that is a business opportunity. And so with the decisions taken here today, by world leaders. What it provides is that incentivize and create the enabling environment for opportunities to be tapped from the environmental challenges that we face today.
That will really be an amazing opportunity indeed. Now, Dr. Richard, we understand that today's activities will basically be commemorating the 50th anniversary of the creation of United Nations Environment Programme, that's the UNEP. What should we be expecting?
1972 is the year that actually UNEP was created. And UNEP was created to inspire, to inform, and to convene the entire world to address environmental challenges. And within these commemoration of the 50 years of UNEP, is 50 years of achievements in which UNEP have informed the science to then be able to engineer debate around issues. Just for example, UNEP produced for over a decade today the emissions gap report that have actually helped countries to know where we are heading as a global community when it comes to emissions that are actually accelerating runaway climate change. UNEP have produced what we call the frontier, which is actually bringing emerging issues. In 2016, UNEP Frontier Report actually showcased that if we continue to encroach and destroy nature and destroy our wildlife, we might actually end up with a pandemic like COVID that came to pass. These are just some of the examples. The 50 years then is celebrating the achievements of UNEP, but also for the global community and world leaders to put in place and guide on how the work of UNEP going forward can actually be strengthened, can actually focus and continuously guide and also provide guidance on how these decisions that are being taken today can actually be implemented, and also lessons learned and cross-shared with other countries. So it's 50 years of achievement and also 50 years looking forward.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Dr. Richard, for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right.